Okay, welcome to my presentation, everybody. We're just going to go bang, bang, bang all the way through these. Please forgive me. I was working on my keynote all the way through this. I have about 30 seconds before I begin. I would like to remind everyone that we are sponsoring, not this, but this, Jerry Akota's Myanmar fundraiser. So if you have a moment, I've already put it into the chat. I will put it into the chat after my presentation is over, the URL to Jerry's donation page, but that's the QR code for it right there. And please try to be generous. Okay, let me bring this over to me here. All right, good morning, everyone. I'm José Domingo Cruz, and I would like to talk to you about my small change, big impact event, which centered around my iPad in my classroom. I'm also going to be talking about things like how I teamed it up with Zoom, of course, and how I teamed it up with my LMS, all of which were huge impacts in my classroom. But specifically today, I want to talk about how I used the combination of my iPad with Zoom, with my LMS a little bit, not talking about that much, but also the room projector. So this is basically a lot of this stuff you already have in your room or was established because of the pandemic, and is stuff that you can use in a chain to take advantage of all this technology so that then not only will you give greater visibility of your board work to the students sitting all the way in the back, who, you know, I think we learned through a lot of the things that Alex Burke has been talking about, are students who are not necessarily there just to slough off. Some of them are, but a lot of them aren't there just to slough off. Or they, even if they sit in the front row, they still can't see the board very well for a lot of different reasons. One of them is the lighting in the room. One of them is maybe disadvantages in just the way that they see, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Also, there are disadvantages to using chalk on a blackboard. One of them is just using chalk. I mean, I don't know about you, but I hate chalk dust on my fingers, which inevitably ends up on the front right hip of my pants, because that's where I just naturally just start wiping off the chalk dust. So I thought, hey, I've already got a projector in the room. I'm already using it to connect my computer to show on the projector the Moodle assignments for the week. And I realized as I was doing this that I can put all this together with an iPad and a stylus to do something else. So let me start my keynote. And there she is. Oh, actually, wait a minute. Sorry, that's still on the wrong page, my keynote. So I will come back to my keynote and start over. Plain window. Okay, and bring it over here. Very typical of me, everyone. I'm totally unprepared. Okay. I got to start this share over. Looking good, Jose. Okay, so there's the list of things that you're going to need for this. You're going to need a tablet and a stylus. Okay. Specifically, that stylus, by the way, I have an iPad and an Apple Pencil. I love my iPad. You do not need to buy an Apple Pencil. Okay. Go to Amazon and find a replacement for what is eventually, if you buy an Apple Pencil, going to cost you about, nowadays, I think it's like 12,000 yen, and you can find a good one for about 3,000, 4,000 yen, much, much less expensive. We already have our computers in the rooms. We almost all of us now bring our computers to work and then hook them up to the projector. So the computer, the Zoom, and the projector are already there. And if you were thinking about getting an iPad or a less expensive Android, I think this is still something that you can do. Now, what you stand to gain with this, okay, you're going to provide yourself with copies of your board work, which is something that I never had before. As I was furiously scribbling on that blackboard, I thought to myself, wow, this is a really cool phrase that I came up with on the spot. And I would take photographs of it. But now, if you actually put it straight into the iPad itself, and I'll show you how, you're going to get copies of all of the phrases that you wrote on your board work, and you can provide it to your students as well if you use good note-taking software. Your board is no longer just visible to you immediately. Even if you write really big handwriting, you're still trying to reserve some space on that board so that you can write the rest of the stuff that you plan to write. Using, again, the software well, any single sentence can be, I don't know, about, you know, if you were writing it about this big on the board, it's going to be about this big on a projector. I'll show you some samples of that. So now the whole classroom can see it much more clearly. Another really great thing about this is that you don't have to be at the board to write on the board. You don't have to have your back to the students to write on the board. You can literally see the students, like I'm watching you guys right now, and as I'm watching you, I can actually write on the iPad. And as I said before, no more chalk fingers. Now, to get this going, you need the tablet and the stylus. You need a pro Zoom account, okay? Because if you're working with a cheaper Zoom account, it'll cut off in 40 minutes. Now, if you work the timing on that, then I guess it's okay. You can maybe get the kids to do a little bit of busy work or do some group discussion work and then restart the Zoom, but way too much trouble. And most of us have accounts from our universities, okay? I would recommend a piece of software called GoodNotes, GOODNOTES, one word, GoodNotes, because it is really, really good at working with stylus, a tablet and a stylus, and it will digitize everything that you write. If you write in clear enough handwriting, digitize all of that into digital editable text. Okay, you already have a computer, a projector, and a screen, I'm assuming in your room, unless you're working, I don't know, in a caveman type school. And you're going to get something like this. Okay, that's the projector. You can see that window right over to the side there. Yeah, there's my cursor. That's a window, Venetian blinds. And you can see how much bigger this will be in a room. Now, one little bit that's kind of left over from me using this with Zoom is you get the speaker view, even the avatar. Even if you turn off hide self view, you will get this avatar if you share. But you see those little double white handles, you can at least minimize it to the smallest size. On the other hand, if you drag that over to the left-hand side, that will increase your size if you want to turn on your camera so that you can speak to your audience. But that's a very big single phrase. Instead of it just being on one corner of the room that's maybe on the diametrically opposite corner of the room, is very hard for the students to see who are sitting over there. If you're working in a multimedia, one of these sort of enhanced interactive learning rooms like I have, they have multiple projectors on multiple walls so that multiple students sitting in different places can see your projector really easily. In this particular case, because of the way the light was bouncing around in the room, you can't see what I'm writing very easily. But trust me, if I was to shift to where any of those students were sitting, they could very easily see the prompts that I wrote. Okay, now let's start getting down to the nitty-gritty. How do you do this? So there's my computer, there's my iPad, and the iPad is connected to power because in this case, this particular day that I chose to take this picture, the iPad was running down on power and had to plug it in. But most of the time, I have it unplugged so that then I can pick it up anytime that I want and walk around and show things to students as I'm coaching them in their discussions. You can see that the image on the computer is the same as the image on the iPad, so that I can actually use the iPad, I can actually use the computer kind of like how we use presenter notes when we do presentations to tell me what the next thing I want to write up is. I actually, and I have no science behind this, but I find that my students respond much more intuitively to me writing the sentence up on my iPad and projecting it onto the computer than me flipping to the next slide. If I go to the next slide, and even I feel it, it feels a little colder, but if I write it, they sort of respond to that a bit more. It also looks pretty cool when you're standing there writing something on a pad and it's appearing on the projector, is actually a pretty cool effect. And I think kids kind of enjoy it for the first few times that they see it. Now, first thing you got to do is you got to connect to the projector. Now, this is an iPad connecting to a projector, but I'm going to assume that you've already been able to connect your computer to the projector. Whatever number of dongles it takes, and it sometimes takes a bunch of dongles, especially if your computer is still using VGA connectors and your, in this case, iPad is only USB-C out. My MacBook is also only USB-C out, but it has an HDMI connector, but this particular school only has VGA. So this is the setup that I had to actually get audio out as well too. So I'm going to assume you did whatever you did to get your projector connected to the room. Okay, now the next few things that you're going to do is you're going to connect the tablet to the same Zoom meeting. These are kind of in the wrong order, but I'm assuming that you've gotten the projector up, and then you connect the tablet to the same Zoom meeting. Now, there are a number of ways that you can do that, but first of all, it's in the wrong order, but when you disconnect the tablet audio, that makes sure that you don't have two microphones picking up your voice. You only need one. And in my case, I make sure that the computer is the one that's actually running audio to record my voice or to project it out to whatever hybrid student is logging into Zoom for this classroom, okay? I'll show you a little bit later when you log into the Zoom meeting how to choose to make sure that you go no audio, but it's actually pretty foolproof. On an iPad, it asks you, do you want to join with audio? And are you sure you don't want to join with audio? Okay, you turn off the camera on the tablet and the computer. Now, I do this by connecting the iPad as another Zoom participant. Now, there's ways to do it so you can share the iPad's image, but in my experience, that's not as convenient as actually just making the iPad go into the meeting as a separate participant. Okay, righty. Now, there are two ways to do it. You can either do, if the computer is doing most of the heavy lifting of connecting to the projector, you can connect it either in mirroring mode, where the image that you see on your computer monitor is the same as you will see on the projector. But I also like to do it in multi-monitor. After you get a bit of experience, I would actually recommend that you do that, because then you can edit even stuff that you want to do on the LMS as the kids are actually watching something else in a projector, and they don't have to watch you fumble around and edit in the same way that you guys are watching me fumble around right now. Okay, so the mirroring is easier to do it. You get greater flexibility if you do it in multi-monitor. Now, the iPad's image, okay, once you move it over to the mirrored monitor, you can get it to double click. So I would suggest you guys even try it right now. If Zoom on your computer right now is in a separate window, double click anywhere on that Zoom window and you'll see it expand into the entire window. If it's already expanded into full window size, double click on it and it will come down into a smaller window. It's a good tip to know, actually, if you want to be able to see the other windows on behind that Zoom window. And as I said before, you know, those double white handlebars, minimize them so that then you have the maximum amount of space given to the iPad image. Okay. If you share using AirPlay, okay, make sure that you do it, as I'm about to stop the share. Make sure that you do it using the mirroring option. Now, where is it here? Where did it go? Where did you go? Well, that's odd. Where did that image go? Excuse me, everyone. I thought I had this prepared. Okay, let's open it up. Oops, should be there. Okay. Now let's share that. There it is. Okay, so when you connect the iPad to the computer, do it using connect via AirPlay. If you do it by connecting via cable, that means that the iPad has to be connected to the computer via cable, and that limits you to being close to your computer unless you have a really long USB-C cable. Do it by screen mirroring. Now, what screws people up about screen mirroring is that you've got to tap the screen mirroring icon. See that in instruction number 2? Tap screen mirroring and then choose Zoom Desk Warrior. This is where people who've never done it before get a bit confused. So you're going to do this once you've asked. For example, I'll show you this. Stop this share, and I'm going to share my desktop, my entire desktop. And I'll show you what you would probably see if you actually asked for a share. If you ask for a share, you're going to get this palette. Okay. And if you go with iPhone, iPad via cable, that's okay, but it limits your mobility. You can't move around the room while you're holding the iPad. If you go via AirPlay, okay, then you're going to get that thing that I had before. Now, let me stop that share. Now, that thing that I had before, I will go back to in a separate window. And what it's asking you to do is actually go to this little icon right here. And once you tap that icon, there's going to be a list of all of the available AirPlay networks that you can go onto. And at the very bottom, it will say Zoom and then the name of your computer. That's the one you want, the one at the very bottom that's labeled Zoom. While you're here, you also want to check that your screen lock is on. So set it to portrait orientation and set the screen lock so it doesn't, every time you move around the room, it might retilt to portrait orientation. That's a little disorienting when the projector is always doing that. And you also want to hit focus to set it to do not disturb, so that then you don't have screen messages flashing up on the projector from, you know, your husband or your wife telling you, hey, honey, buy some milk before you come home. Now let's bring this back over here. Okay, you would also want to prepare your apps to be shown on screen. So that includes everything that you want to do with Google Earth, any pages that you want to show on Safari, like me. Sometimes it flubs up. I prepared a whole bunch of JPEG images in my preview account, and that was flashed up there. Now, I believe, yeah, now I'm going on to other tips. So from here, I'm going to actually show you what it's like to do the AirPlay on your computer. So I'm going to just come over here and Zoom Desk Warrior. And there is my, and by the way, it's here where it says Zoom Desk Warrior. That's what it actually looks like. So I'm mimicking what I actually do in the classroom, because I actually make this come up as a participant in as a Zoom meeting participant in my projector. But here's where I would start the class. I would go to my Moodle, head down to whatever class I want to do. So let's say, for example, let's say class number 10, and then I go over the assignments for the week for that particular class. Now, I wasn't prepared. I ended up showing my class plan to you, but normally I put this into what's called student mode. And if I go into student mode, then it doesn't actually show all the little notes that I showed to myself. So if we go back to class 10, you'll see that that section about the class plan is not visible. That's usually what I prepare. Now, what I do from here after and by the way, I'm recording all of this too, at least the Moodle explanation, so that then kids who weren't able to come because they had a cold or had the close contact quarantine, thank you very much, close contact quarantine, will want to see that. This is where I switch into GoodNotes. And this is where I actually start using GoodNotes. And you can see my handwriting and how big this, you can imagine how big this would be in a projector. GoodNotes also allows you to keep everything that you write on here. And so, for example, I wrote this earlier on, and I would be able to switch to a new page, write that up, and I would be able to publish that to PDF and give out to the other students. I did not realize I was so late with this. I will make myself available during lunch to answer any questions to anyone who wants to ask me about this. But trust me, this is a really, made a really big change, a really big impact in my classroom by using this iPad and stylus. I was able to move around the room. Students could see the work much better. The notes that I wrote myself, when I wrote clearly, sometimes you can see that I have really bad handwriting, or it's hard to write, you know, sometimes until you get used to it on an iPad with a stylus. But the students themselves will be able to read it. Also, another great thing is they get used to, if you're using slides and with typed fonts all the time, they get used to reading that. But here they get used to reading handwriting. And we all know how hard it is to read handwritten kanji as opposed to typewritten kanji. But with handwritten English, a lot of them don't actually get a chance to see that, and they see it more. A lot of them will give up on reading handwritten English because the board is too hard to read. So I think there are great advantages to it. I will stop now. The last minute and a half. Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask? Otherwise, we're going to jump straight into that.
Jose, there was one question in the chat. Somebody wants to know, and I want to know too, why use a Zoom meeting at all? Is it to accommodate a hybrid class?
It is so that then the iPad can talk to the computer, and you can have both the computer and the iPad ready to switch to the projector anytime that you want. Also, then Zoom will very easily record anything that's on that projector. If you go straight from the screen of the monitor or the screen of the iPad to the projector. There were ways to record it, but Zoom makes it so easy to record anything just by hitting that record button. And I found that extremely convenient.
Excellent.
Mm.
The very last comment in the chat, if you want to take a look, is Samantha Kawakami, who mentions not using Zoom.
Yeah. So, everybody does what they want to do. I want to be able to record this. I want to be able to move around, in my shares. So if you don't use Zoom, it's entirely up to you.
Sure.
Sure. Jose, you were so awesome. I disagree. Oh, there you go. Let's see. 1 minute left. Any other questions, everyone? Great. Adam, you all set?
Giving you a virtual round of applause here. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for putting up with me. Sorry that was so disorganized.